Hi everyone, this is Dragon GGY. It's been quite some time since the last module reveal update, and I figured that I may as well change the schedule of this series so that it comes with the global update instead of sticking with the CN schedule. That way, similar to Operator Hindsight, we will have more time to assess the module, whether it's worth the cost judging from its performance over the 6 months with meta considerations. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. So this episode will include Fantasy in the Mirage, where Global is at currently, and Atoll, which is Global's anniversary patch coming next month. As always, the metrics stays the same. I'll try to get the online Google Sheet up with the CN progress as soon as possible so that if you want details ahead, you can go check that out, while the video format comes to you with Global release. Join my Discord server for more discussions as well. Today we're starting off with Leizi Alter X. It's a straightforward module, faster startup, plus damage increase. Detailed breakdowns can be found in her Operator Hindsight review. In short, she now gets to full attack build-up in 20 seconds after deploying, down from 40 seconds. Her skill 2 damage is increased by 15.97%. The attack scale has great coverage, so even though it's a bit below the standard of a damage improvement module, it's still acceptable, but it is relatively low. Level 1 mandatory, level 3 recommended for maximum damage. Next we have Goldenglow Y. Instead of the higher startup rate of Module X, Module Y provides a higher damage cap for the drones and comes with the higher resistance ignore. Therefore, it's a damage quality improvement and is more significant on high resistance enemies. Theoretically, with high attack speed, low target count, but high target quality situations, Module Y is better. The 7 attack speed from attribute gives 2 more attack during skill 3, and it's a majority part to the improvement. However, if you think in terms of the total damage dealt by the drones, Module Y only catches up with Module X after doing 16 hits without switching targets, and in practice, it's not very likely because of her drone explosion mechanics. It would be better on Leizi, but not on Goldenglow. Nowadays, many would use Goldenglow in the Yu burn team, presumably with Leizi Alter as well for the Mecha Core Door. With Burn Burst, that resistance ignore increase will turn less significant. Not to mention that both the Burn Burst and this module kinda have a backloaded damage pattern. To visualize the damage pattern, here's a total damage build-up graph between Module X and Y, and whether Goldenglow switches targets when the drones explode. And as you can see, Module X have the head start, and Y only catches up when not switching targets and by having 2 more attacks. When switching targets, Module X always does more total damage. So, as a conclusion, Module X makes sure that you lose less damage when switching targets, so that's higher floor, lower ceiling. Module Y went against high resistance and without switching targets, so lower floor, higher ceiling. But if we go into context about how she's used nowadays, it's mostly in IS runs with attack speeds or in the Mecha Core Door with Yu. And either way, it's less common to use her just to take out 1 or 2 targets. Target switching is very, very frequent for Goldenglow, and upping her damage quality when she's lacking the quantity is not a good call in my opinion. So my recommendation is still Module X level 3. If you already have that module, then I say definitely do not go for Module Y. For Module Y, it's also either level 3 or not at all because the attack speed is where the extra damage comes from. The base effect is just not it. Next we have Typhon Y, and this is a pretty solid module. Basically, it strengthens the key selling point for her skill 2, which is 1-hit KOing enemies. It now deals up to 9.9k damage on that first attack if both arrows hits the same target, as compared to the 5.9k with Module X even when it's against heavy enemies. It will also mean that she will slow and crit the same enemy on the first 2 attacks back to back if they are only hit by 1 arrow on the first attack when Typhon is multi-targeting, kinda like a fail-safe mechanism. So it will outcompete Module X in most situations outside of facing super high defense enemies, like 3000 plus defense, which would definitely be beyond the scope of the AFK skill 2. However, the base effect is designed to be very strict. The damage amp scale starts on the edges of the tile Typhon is on, increasing by 3% per tile linearly, meaning that the 12% damage increase is only possible when the enemy is just stepping into a range from the far side. Which I guess is okay because we said Typhon has a really fast attack startup and will intercept enemies as they enter the range, but if they make it beyond that point, you'll never get the full 12% again. Also, the damage amp is post defense, so it's less gain against high defense enemies, which is also understandable because that's where Module X excels at. So overall, this is a very delicately designed module, and they do make a distinction from her previous module by stacking all the odds onto her skill 2 AFK. Module X is better against high defense heavy enemies, now mostly with skill 3, and Y is better, in fact much better for the skill 2 AFK. Considering that Typhon unfortunately has a skill 3 niche basically taken away by Lamion's design, I'd say if you use Typhon nowadays, realistically you are using her for skill 2 AFK, and when doing that, Module Y is dominantly better. Next, Gavial Alter Y. This one is kinda embarrassing. It's a survival-based module allowing her to tank better with lower sustain, but the thing here isn't quite about the module, it's about Gavial herself. She, as a lane holder, is both statistically and mechanically behind for that job. Yes, it allows her to be sustained with less healing, but not no healing. So since we have the elephant, or should I say the whale, in the room, I'd say for most players, using her just for tanking is a niche. Not to mention that the difference between her survivability in and off skill is stark, and thus not consistent. Overall, Module X is better at lane holding damage, Module Y has better survival, but as always, killing all enemies faster could also be good survival, and I don't quite see the advantage of Y, even with that 10% physical fragile, which is post defense as well. I don't think a module is necessary to start with, but if you have to pick one, I'd say Module X level 1+. Next are modules in the next batch. For the general Primal Caster X base effect, the attack scale is effective for all types of damage, and surprisingly for all types of elements as well, so Blaze can do more damage for an enemy in a Cross's burst, Nymph vice versa. Not practical, but interesting nonetheless. This module is also covered in Blaze's episode earlier. Basically, it makes the burn burst spike damage higher by 58.3%. It's deadly regardless if she's doing damage by herself or being the damage amp provider. Skill 3's damage, potential damage, increases to 113k, proved deadly during her appearance in CZB 4. The 10-second attack bonus covers the entire burn burst window, which is neat, but the self-healing increase is less impactful for general users. Next, the Nymph X, on the other hand, is more of a QOL plus damage upgrade. She now stacks talent 2 significantly faster with the lifted in-range condition, so that her positioning, especially when working with Virtuosa, is less restricted and can benefit from other Necrosis dealers in team more easily. Her final damage improvement with skill 3 is at 32.8%, now dealing up to 123k direct skill damage, and that's not including her talent 1 E DPS, which has also been boosted by the higher attack, and the potential elemental fragile from Virtuosa's modules, so the duel is low-key very deadly right now. The only downside to it is the fact that skill 2 doesn't benefit from the attack speed much, but the higher attack stacks will definitely help with the damage. Next, we have Haruka Y, the co-runner for the banner in this event. It's actually a pretty typical weak module for a good operator. With the module, she heals 3 targets in skill 2 and 2 in others. The upgrades allow her to give some SP recovery to allies as well. But the increased attack and heal target count is independent from her bubble mechanics, so it doesn't change the fact that she only gives out 1 bubble per attack, and given the faster attack interval of Abjuris and compared to most medics, they inherently are not too worried about multi-healing. And her main skill, skill 2, is a 2 target to start with. Most of the time it's already sufficient for multi-healing, and you'd rather want more healing per attack. The SP on Bubble Break is also dependent on both Haruka's own and enemy's attack interval, and is just effectively plus 0.125 SP per second under standard interval and when the bubbles are always broken instantly. In my opinion, that's borderline scamming and the upgrades are not recommended. The module does nothing to increase her HPS other than the attack attribute for only 9.28% HPS improvement. Realistically, I would say this mod is kinda lame and recommend waiting for Module X, but the thing with second modules nowadays is that they are likely gonna come out only when an operator is half or entirely buried by the meta. So while Haruka is dominating the sustain department, I'd say it's fair to invest. And speaking of half buried, Chen Alter Y is also here. She's now 24 to 26 DP. The second part of her talent 2 is finally consistent as well. Skill 3 now deals 3.3k DPH, 26.87% higher than base, and 13% higher than the previous Module X, dealing up to 129k by expectation, and that's on par with most current gen damage skills. She now also dishes out this damage faster with higher attack speed. The DPS is almost 40% higher than the base and 26% higher than Module X. Therefore, in terms of damage, this module wins out massively. But back to the meta, despite making it statistically on total damage and DPS, she's still quite behind in terms of DPH and range. We have Wizardel in the room, and I don't feel like making another analogy to Elephant for this one. But definitely consider if you still use Chen Alter anymore before you invest. So comparing side by side, Module X now solely serves the ammo save buff purpose. Module Y makes her cheaper and does more damage and is excellent for improving the overall experience. Module Y level 3 is the recommended option. That's gonna be it for this episode. Thank you all for watching. Gotta catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.